The air was freezing, the cold seeped into your bones. Even the thermometer was frozen at -70 degrees Celsius in the biting cold. At -70, the world held its breath. Only the cold remained, pressing in, silent and unrelenting around her. Elara stood by the window, her fingertips tracing the intricate, jagged frost patterns that had claimed the glass from the inside. Outside, the world had ceased to exist as anything other than a blue-white expanse of ice. No trees swayed, no animals moved. She stood behind the frozen glass, her cold eyes fixed on the endless white, quietly preparing herself to step outside. Elara reached for the heavy oak door and shoved. The hinges groaned, a high-pitched protest against the deep freeze. As she stepped onto the porch, the air hit her face like a physical blow, sharp and immediate. Her cheeks flushed a raw, burning crimson. Stepping out of the cabin, she moved into the snow, her boots crunching softly as she lifted each foot with effort. She reached the wood pile, her movements slow and deliberate. She gripped a log, her fingers stiffening against the rough, frozen bark. Returning from gathering firewood, a sudden gust of wind threw her off balance. She stumbled, her shoulder hitting the hut wall. She hauled wood, chest tight, to safety's door. She slammed the door shut, locking the howl of the wind behind the heavy oak. The interior was dim, the shadows stretching long across the floorboards. As she tried to place the logs on the ground, her hands failed from the cold, and the logs fell from her arms. She knelt down and fumbled with the matches, her fingers too cold to grip them properly in the freezing silence. She took a deep breath, forced her hands to remain still, and struck the second match against the rough surface. A small, orange flame appeared. She leaned closer, the heat radiating against her face. The ice on her eyelashes began to melt, turning into tiny, glistening droplets that rolled down her cheeks. She stayed there, motionless, watching the flames dance. The heat seeped into her skin, thawing the deep ache in her bones. Outside, the wind hammered against the timber walls, a relentless, rhythmic assault. But inside, the air was shifting. She was safe, for this moment. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a cold, worn locket, and slowly opened it, revealing a faded photograph inside. Inside, a faded image stared back at her, a face blurred by time and dampness, yet clear enough for her to fix her gaze on it. That was what held it there. It was the anchor that kept it tied to the ground as the ice tried to pull it down. With a soft sigh, she gently closed the locket and slipped it into her pocket, its cold weight resting against her chest. She rose from the hearth, her movements stiff and measured. She reached into the corner, pulling a heavy fur blanket from the stack. She wrapped it tightly around her shoulders, the thick fabric forming a final barrier against the creeping cold. She gazed at the frozen horizon. The dawn was coming, and Elara was ready for whatever it would bring her next, no matter what.